So in today's video, I'm going to be predicting the Chiefs 2022 record. Now, before we get into the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's jump right into the video. So this will likely be a first of two record predictions videos we'll do this offseason. We'll do this one right now, the initial predictions, and with the schedule being out. It was released a few weeks ago, but with the schedule being out now, we'll make the initial predictions. And then once we have all the information from the preseason, we will make the predictions heading into the actual season. Now, to be 100% honest, I'm not going to play fair when it comes to the Chiefs and their schedule. I'm going to be a complete Chiefs homer, and I'll probably say things about specific teams that are kind of harsh, kind of mean, or just something that usually I try to play fair, and I'm usually fair and I take both objective sides. But in this video, my full Chiefs homer is going to come out, and we are going to predict the Chiefs record. So my initial record for the Chiefs I have is 12-5. That is the record that I think the Chiefs will have at the end of next season. And I think a 12-5 record, even for how tough this schedule is, I think that is very viable for the Chiefs. Now, let's first look at the losses that I think the Chiefs will have. The first loss I think they'll have is week 4 against the Buccaneers at the Buccaneers. I think that will probably be the first loss of their season. The Buccaneers are a very good team, and they just did get Tom Brady back. So I think that that's going to be a very tough game for the Chiefs, especially on a younger defense. I think offensively, the Chiefs will be fine because we still have Patrick Mahomes and we still have Travis Kelce, Andy Reid. But I think defensively, with it being such a younger defense, they're still going to need a few more weeks to gel. I do think that will be a loss for the Chiefs. Week 6 against Buffalo, while I do think the Chiefs are going to remember what happened in the regular season last year against Buffalo, I don't think it's going to be that bad. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen were able to duke it out back and forth in the divisional game. So in a way, I kind of expect the exact same thing with this game. I do see Buffalo getting their revenge on this game, but I also do see with the Chiefs having a chip on their shoulder because of what happened last year in the regular season, and they don't want a repeat of the rough offense that they had in the regular season last year. So I can really see that game still going either way, but I will give that one to Buffalo. Now we have one loss to the Chargers, either week 2 or week 11. I honestly think that can go either way personally, because every year it feels like the Chiefs split a game with the Chargers. They did it last year. They played 2 really good games last year, both at Arrowhead and at SoFi. The Chiefs walked out the second game in overtime with a Travis Kelce touchdown. So those two always play tough. So whether it's in week 2 or week 11, I think the Chiefs, just because it's the Chargers, that will end up splitting a game. And I just think that the Chargers, honestly, for the Chiefs, are the toughest opponent when it comes to the division. And this is where I'm being honest and a homer for the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are the best team in the division still by far. But then you have the Chargers, who I still think, I know they're overhyped, but just because of how the Chargers play the Chiefs every year specifically, I think the Chargers, with the revamped defense that they have, a better defense than last year, and obviously Justin Herbert, an absolute stud of a quarterback, I think that you could chalk up either week 2 or week 11 a loss for the Chiefs. Week 12 against the Rams, I think the Chiefs will probably likely lose against the Rams week 12. Now, I'm kind of expecting a repeat of what happened in the Monday Night Football game a few years ago, how great that game was. I honestly expect this game to probably be just as good, because the Rams did that with Jared Goff, and now they have Matthew Stafford. They have elite talent on the offense, Allen Robinson, Cooper Kupp, and they just have a great offense. The Rams obviously have a good defense, but like I said, I think the Chiefs offensively are still going to be a good football team. I think offensively, the Chiefs are going to be just fine. Now, it may take them a minute to gel, but I think offensively, even with the great defense that the Rams had a great defense the last time the Chiefs played them. And I know the Chiefs, obviously, we had Tyreek Hill at the time, but even with the great defense the Rams had last time, the Chiefs were still able to pick apart that Rams defense. So I think that this game is going to be very close, but the Rams, I do give them the edge in this game, even though, again, I think it's going to be a very close game. And the final loss that I have against the Chiefs getting this year is against the Broncos. Now, I'm very hesitant to even, originally I had 13-4 for the Chiefs record, and I had them sweeping the Broncos like they do every year since like 2015. They've won 13 straight games. I had to mentally give the Broncos this win, even though I'm not even confident, and I do think the Chiefs still have a chance to sweep the Broncos this year, because one thing about Russell Wilson is later in the seasons, his production does seem to fall off later in seasons, and the Chiefs don't play the Broncos until week 14. And so in the Chiefs' favor, by then, the defense is going to be what the defense is. If the defense is good, which I think it will be with the new young talent that the Chiefs added on defense, they're playing Russell Wilson at a time of the season where he struggles and he's just not the best quarterback. The quarterback that gets MVP votes weeks 1 through 7 and then just falls off a cliff later in the season. So that's when the Chiefs do get Russell Wilson. I think Russell Wilson's a good quarterback, don't get me wrong, but the last few years, Russell Wilson has not played well later in seasons. And so I'm hesitant to give the Broncos a win here. I really am. But just because they did get Russell Wilson, and because I want my Chiefs homerness to come out on this, the Broncos do have a good defense, and I really don't think that the Broncos are going to be able to beat the Chiefs, because even with Russell Wilson, because of his production falling off a cliff later in the seasons, I will chalk them up to a win, but I'm very hesitant on it. But I also had to be realistic with the Chiefs and not give them too high of a record. And so just for that sake, the only other loss that I personally see that the Chiefs having would have been against the Broncos, and that would give them 5 losses on the season with a 12-5 record. Now, the rest of the games, I do think the Chiefs are going to win. By no means is it going to be easy. It's going to be a tough record. They play the Cardinals, but they get them week 1 without DeAndre Hopkins, and I think that's a good test for the defense to see what they can do. It's going to be easier for them to see how they can gel just because of an elite wide receiver being gone. I know people might be like, oh, the Chiefs beat the Cardinals without DeAndre Hopkins. Whatever. Kyler Murray's a good quarterback. So that's a really good test, I think, week 1 for the defensive side of the ball for the Chiefs to see how well they play. Obviously, you have a games against the Colts, which I do think they're going to win. The Colts are a better team with Matt Ryan. There's no doubting that. But I just think that the Chiefs are just a much better team. You compare skill levels and skill positions. I think the Chiefs have a better offense than the Colts do. So I think at that point, you can chalk that win up to the Chiefs. The Raiders, I think the Chiefs are going to sweep the Raiders. The Chiefs blew out the Raiders last year in both games. And I don't think that the Raiders did enough to overcome the deficit that they had last year. I don't think the Raiders did enough to overcome a 64-point deficit that they had last year against Kansas City. And keep in mind, the Chiefs didn't have a particularly great defense last year, and they were able to shut down the Raiders, and they weren't able to do anything. And this is where my homerness and the Chiefs and my rivalry against the division comes out. I think that the Raiders got lucky down the stretch last season to even make the playoff, because there was no doubt that the Raiders were going through some troubles last year with their head coach and everything that went off the field. But later in the season, I just think that the Raiders got particularly lucky with the last games that they played. They played Cleveland, who was playing Nick Mullins as the quarterback last year. They played the Broncos with Drew Lock as quarterback. They played Indianapolis, where Carson Wentz was just absolutely crapping the bed late in the season. And then you have the Chargers, who honestly, their head coach kind of cost the Chargers their season last year. And then we saw in the playoff game with the Raiders that Derek Carr threw an interception in that game and ended the Raiders season. So for me personally, I get Devontae Adams is elite. They added Chandler Jones, but the Raiders, I don't think they did enough in their secondary to stop Kansas City. And I don't think Devontae Adams is enough for a 64-point deficit for them to overcome. Like, that is a huge deficit that the Raiders have to face. I don't think the Raiders did enough. You can say how good Derek Carr is. I understand how great the Raiders were last year whenever they did go through their off-the-field issues. But again, I don't think that's enough. The Chiefs, they play the Titans. I think that's going to be a win. They want the revenge from last year, and the Titans don't have A.J. Brown anymore, so I think the Chiefs are going to get that victory. They play the Jaguars. It's going to be cool to see the Chiefs play Trevor Lawrence, Patrick Mahomes versus Trevor Lawrence, but I think the Jaguars, while I do think that the Jaguars had a good offseason, I don't think they had nearly enough to keep up with a team like Kansas City. The Chiefs, they play the Bengals and the Rams in back-to-back weeks. First the Rams, then the Bengals. So they play both Super Bowl participants back-to-back weeks. So that part of the schedule is very, very rough for the Chiefs. But again, the Chiefs lost to the Bengals twice last year. And the chip of the shoulder of what happened in that AFC Championship game is going to be lingering on to Kansas City. And they are not going to want that to happen again. And so I think the Chiefs will come out firing, winning that game. They play the Texans. I think that's a pretty simple victory. I mean, you don't want any trap games, but it's the Texans. I don't think they're a particularly good football team, even though I do like Davis Mills. The Seahawks, we will end up playing Drew Lock again, so I'm not that worried. Drew Lock's not that good of a quarterback, so yeah, if we play Drew Lock again, we've beaten him enough times in his time with Denver, so not really worried about the Seattle Seahawks. And so with all that being said, I can't forget the 49ers game. I almost forgot the 49ers game. I do think the Chiefs will have a victory against the 49ers. Now, that game will be close, I do think, because the 49ers, I do think, have one of the toughest defenses to face in the NFL. But with them not playing Jimmy Garoppolo, or we don't know if they're playing Trey Lance, I just don't know what to make of the quarterback, because then by that time, when the Chiefs do play the 49ers week 7, we'll know by then what Trey Lance is made of, and we'll know if he's truly the future, and we'll know that if he can make an impact in the game. So all in all, that game will be tough, but I do think the Chiefs, just because they have the better quarterback, is going to be able to pull out that victory. I don't know if anybody's going to argue that. But if we're looking at the Chiefs schedule, originally I had 13-4, but I had to be realistic about it because this schedule is very tough. The Chiefs, they play so many back-to-back games that are going to be tough. Their first 8 games of this season are against teams that had winning records last year. They play 8 playoff teams from last year. So the Chiefs have a tough schedule. But for me personally, I believe in what Brett Veach did. I fully understand we lost Tyreek Hill, but when you have Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Andy Reid, that trio right there are gold together. Then you also have to chalk up to the fact that Brett Veach loaded up the offense with more weapons with Juju Smith-Schuster, with they added MVS. They drafted Sky Moore. Justin Ross is absolutely lighting up OTAs. We're all excited about him. And the Chiefs have a better defense right now than I think they did last year. The defense was a struggle last year. I still think the defensive line is a bit of an issue for Kansas City, and that is something that still needs to be addressed and fixed. But I think comparing from last year to this year, the defensive line is better, adding George Karlaftis. The linebacking core is absolutely insane. They added Jermaine Carter to go and Leo Chanel to go along with Nick Bolton and Willie Gay. They added a boatload of talent in the secondary, Justin Reed. They drafted Trent McDuffie in the first round. And the secondary, they added Brian Cook out of Cincinnati. So the defense is loaded with talent. And it's not even that it's loaded with talent. It's loaded with hard-hitting physical guys. And that's why I believe in Kansas City. That's why I believe in the record that the Chiefs will have this year with 12-5. Personally, I do think that they can do better because like I said, I think they can still sweep the Broncos, even adding Russell Wilson. But realistically, for me personally, as a Chiefs fan, this is all my bias. This is all 100%. If you find this video annoying, I'm very sorry. I try not to be annoying on here. But when predicting and talking about the Chiefs, and specifically predicting the records, especially against divisional opponents, I'm going to give my full Chiefs homerness out. And again, no offense. This was just a lot of fun. I wanted to predict the Chiefs schedule and give my opinion, my initial opinion of what I think their record will be, and I think the Chiefs will have a 12-5 record. But give me your Chiefs record down below. What do you think the Chiefs will finish? Give me what you think the Chiefs will finish next year. Give me your thoughts down below, and I'll see you in the next one.